Welcome back to another episode of Looking Forward to It. Today is Monday, November 21st, 2016. Welcome to our 18th episode, and today we are talking all about Final Fantasy 15. It is our show before the Final Fantasy 15 release date on the 29th. It is officially a week before Final Fantasy 15 comes out worldwide. And so it's kind of a special episode for us. We're going to talk a bit today about some of the news items that have come up with Final Fantasy 15. We're going to talk about, where we're going to try to reflect on some of Final Fantasy 15, where it's come from, what it means for this series after all these years, and kind of reflect a little bit personally on what Final Fantasy 15 means. We're also going to talk about Judgment Disc, the demo that came out, so look forward to that. We have Erren Van Dyne here.
Hello.
And she's going to run us through what's new on the site lately. So what's new?
So yeah, like you said, Final Fantasy 15 was the big news on the site this week, with a number of stories across the board, alongside the Japanese-only Judgment Disc demo, which basically allows fans to play through the beginning of the first chapter of the game. Square Enix also shared new screenshots, soundtrack samples, a new TV commercial, which have begun airing in Japan as well. And they also shared details on the game's day one patch, which we've also received a set of patch notes for that. So yeah, there's a lot, and there's going to be more coming.
Awesome. So we got a whole bunch of content on NovaCrystallis.com for you guys to check out. Also, feel free to check us out on our YouTube channel, youtube.com. User is NovaCrystallis.com, all one word, kind of spelled out. We've been doing a bunch of stuff there, and we're going to be putting up Final Fantasy 15 videos in the coming days. So in London, Final Fantasy 15 is collaborating with Jamie Oliver's restaurant, which is also named 15. We actually had some people from representing Nova Crystallis check it out, and they've shared with us some cool pictures of the food and the menu. Erren, what did they say about it?
Well, the fun thing about this is, so these guys, they're good friends of ours, and they do play video games. But they didn't really know much about Final Fantasy 15, so this was kind of like fresh introduction for them. And along with the food that they got to sample, they also got to play the game, and they said they had a good time. So, I'm really glad that we got to have them go to this.
Yeah, sounds really cool. I'm gonna read through the menu here because it looks really delicious. We have for the starter menu, and this is what we have on the site too. We have risotto, bubble and squeak, beer, pickled onion, Berkswell cheese. And we have, for the main course, we have short rib, Yukon gold mash, garlic, Montgomery cheddar. And for dessert, we have yuzu cheesecake, blueberry compote, ginger crumble. I think I'm saying it. You can interject and tell me I'm crazy, but that sounds like a delicious meal.
Yeah, I'm actually really impressed what they put together here, for a 1 week promotion for the game.
Yeah, we'll see if we can get some deeper impressions from them, because I'm curious to see what they thought of the game, as well as people who haven't really been into Final Fantasy 15 or haven't really followed up with it.
He did give me like a short little kind of hot take, if you will.
Oh yeah.
He's like, man, I got to solo this Iron Giant, and it took me 15 minutes, he said, and it was level 30, but he said it was so cool, and he's really excited now. So
That's pretty cool. But by then, your short rib's probably gone cold, so.
Yeah, that's probably true.
So that's pretty cool.
No, the best part is he was asking me questions, like before they got there, what should I expect and this and that, and then he gets there and he sends me a picture and he's like, who is this person? and it ends up being Tabata himself. So I was like, hey, that's the game director, and he's like, oh yeah.
So if there's anyone he wants to blame for that Iron Giant fight, he's like them right there.
Yeah, it was a nice little private event they had set up, and we really appreciate that Square Enix Europe reached out to us and had us attend it. So thank you.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, like, maybe if you could just sneak some of that into like a to-go box and send it our way, and
Right? Yeah.
it'll still be good, right?
Well, apparently, if you want to like actually go there on the public days, you have to get a reservation. So I'm really curious how busy that's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, like, we've had like the Eorzea Cafe in Japan, which has got like a ton of Final Fantasy 14 food, and theme cafes, they're not really that, out of the they're not really that out of the box in Japan, but I don't know. I guess something overseas is a little bit more unique and probably catches a little bit more people off guard. I think it's pretty cool. Like, I wonder if we can eat some of this stuff in game though.
That's a good question. I honestly don't know.
We'll have to see. But so yeah, we had a new demo come out, Judgment Disc. So here's the story. Me, Erren, and Michael have all played it. Mike, however, has not because he wants to remain pure and kind of
Also,
go
the
into
Japanese PSN.
right. I mean, he doesn't want to set up a Japanese PSN, which is like super easy, but
Oh my God.
it's like pulling teeth. And I understand we're not too far away, so I think we'll kind of flip things around a little bit. Normally we have me asking everyone questions, but this time I want to maybe have Mike
I get to
kind
be the
of.
host.
Hey, sure, by all means, if you want to take over, I'll
So
just
what's so
kick
different
back.
about the Judgment demo as opposed to what we've seen before with like Dusky and Platinum demo seems like a departure. So mostly just Dusky.
So, like the last thing you've actually physically played yourself is
I played the
Platinum
Platinum
demo.
demo. Yeah, that's the last thing I
Okay,
played.
lots of
Or like
things.
I guess other builds that you guys have played, like either I know
Hmm.
Damian was able to play stuff like
Yeah, I
whatever we've
guess
had lately.
so. I guess maybe we'll start with Damiani then, because I know that he's actually played a couple builds previous to Judgment Disc that have had kind of the same kind of content. So how are things shaping up from like when you started playing kind of the same content?
Yeah, and to answer Mike's first question, I would say the biggest difference about the Judgment Disc demo is it's definitely more of a slice of what you're actually going to get in the final game versus where Dusky was more of a. They added story stuff to it, but it was more of like a playground environment. Go off and do like a bunch of quests and stuff in this like focused area where Judgment Disc strings you along and kind of like guides you in a more linear direction because it's basically the first part of the first chapter of the game, I believe. And for the biggest difference for me was that the game was it definitely looked more polished, definitely ran smoother. And full disclosure, I played it on PS4 Pro, the demo, and I enabled the PS4 Pro options. So I don't know if it ran that well on standard PS4,
Regular.
but it definitely seemed like it was running much better from what I had seen early this year back around E3. So on that end, I feel good about playing it on my PS4 Pro. Content wise, this is where I probably stand apart from Erren and Tony. I had already played every single thing that was in this demo already, and I played it like 6 months ago. So, and it wasn't even all the content. They had some of it was removed from the demo, which in some of the streams I did watch of the early parts of the final build, they're back in. So they definitely cut or restricted some stuff.
That's kind of interesting.
Most notably, towards the end when you're walking over that bridge at the resort to the destination for your quest, at that little like grill and massage parlor, and there's the where the ships disembark from. there's supposed to be a cat on there that triggers a fishing side quest, and it never showed up. And I was like severely disappointed. I was like, no, I wanted to play with the cat again. Anyway, the biggest takeaway for me again was it just looked and played better in terms of on a technical level. It's unfair for me to say anything else just because it would just be I was kind of bored because I had already played this stuff. I was like, man, I've seen this already. Nothing's really exciting me. Nothing's new. But for people who haven't, I imagine this is a pretty cool thing to finally see in action. Like
there's only so many times you can. There's only so many times you can push that car, right?
Oh yeah, at the beginning I was like, no, here we go again. I was like,
can't wait till you do it again when you actually get the final version of it.
Yeah.
The retail copy. It's kind of interesting they actually removed some stuff they had in an earlier build. Like that's kind of like a weird design choice. Maybe it's making more focused on.
I think it was mostly a side quest. Erren might know better because she was the one who was actually telling me that it seemed like from people who had played more of the game that it was just side quest content kind of. They just wanted to keep you focused on the main story and pushing along.
That's not too bad.
Yeah,
you could wander off.
Yep. So in the demo, they basically removed all the side quests except for a couple of them. They just kind of wanted you to maybe get the handle of the world and the battle system and a couple of the story things, but basically, yeah. I mean, there's going to be a lot more to do in the final version.
I guess that kind of makes sense. You were saying like they kind of really kind of led you where they wanted you to go, like kind of on a string. So it makes sense they didn't want to give you that freedom because in the Duskai demo it was like only freedom. There was nothing like hardline like what you had to do aside from I guess the Behemoth quest line. But
yeah, there was that. Also in the Judgment Disc demo, like you can go to the areas where there's obvious dungeons, but
you can't do it.
Like if you try and go in them, this little message pops up and says, "Oh hey, well this is the demo and
play the real game.
Can't go in here, so please look forward to the final game."
Yeah, that sounds mildly disappointing from my point of view. I mean, still.
I guess. Tony. Obviously, I want you to share your thoughts on it. But I also maybe want you to answer this question as well, since you and Erren, I think I've actually played every demo. I didn't play Platinum, so you've played all the demos. I guess the question is, what are your thoughts on playing this? Which demo do you think made the best demo for 15? Like, if people are still like unsure about the game and just want to and have one last chance to check it out. Let's say they have a chance to play Duskai somehow, even though that would be kind of hard at this point if you didn't already get it. Which you felt was ultimately like the best demo?
Well, I guess I'd say Judgment Disc because it's the number one. Like the obvious answer is it's most reflective of the final product.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess I would say Judgment Disc also because I felt like I took away more from Judgment Disc than any other previous demo.
Like
Platinum
story
demo,
or gameplay or kind of everything?
Really everything. And then Platinum demo, we had talked about this a long time ago, but it didn't really feel like a demo. It felt like kind of like a tech demo that just kind of had things going off here and there, and they tried to
it was like a weird
weave some
sandbox
story stuff into it, and it didn't really. It was kind of like a tangent. It didn't really make any, sort of. You understand kind of what's going on and where it fits into things, but it's very divorced from the story number one and number two, very divorced from the actual gameplay that we're getting. It's basically just something that'll show off, hey, this is how the combat's changed since episode Duskai. Episode Duskai, I think, it's kind of pointless at this point. Like it's not. It pretty much right now just serves as a marker of where they were at that point in development. If someone were to play it now, they probably wouldn't get much from it other than maybe that the game is a bit more exploration based than what maybe previous Final Fantasies. But yeah, if I were to recommend any one of them, it would be Judgment Disc, especially since we're so close to number one, and it's the only thing that reflects the final game as it is, and really something that is presenting to us these final ideas, and these final ideas come to fruition. Whereas I think, God, do you remember? Did you guys ever play the 2.0 version of Episode to Sky, where they
Yes.
patched
Yeah,
in?
a little bit.
They patched in like the link system, where you
Oh
had like,
yes.
I mean,
Oh.
Yep.
so at that point it was just kind of, it seemed like it was just kind of an idea, but now in the final platinum, or sorry, not platinum, Judgment Disc demo, we kind of see that come to a bit more of a fruition, where they've honed it a bit more, they've changed things around a bit. Like now that system is kind of completely retooled. Like it's more of like a parry link. Like you have to kind of do positional based
Oh yeah, I
maneuvers,
remember hearing
and
about.
yeah. So that's one thing that's changed from episode to Sky, is that your kind of party combos where you're all kind of jumping in and out and stuff like that. That's kind of been changed to like a positional based system, where Noctis needs to get behind an enemy, and then what'll happen is that Noctis uh, will do like a combo attack with Gladio, Ignis, or Prompto, and either the guest party member too. Another thing that's majorly changed is the ability system, and I'm not talking about magic, but it seems that some of Noctis's abilities that were assigned to triangle, like I think there was one that was like a full thrust on a spear that you would kind of wind up and then do like a big piercing move.
Right.
That's actually kind of woven into like his standard ability set now. So if you have like the spear out in Judgment Disc and you're holding down, or like it's not it you're holding the analog stick away from the enemy, Noctis will kind of do a flip back, and then if you hold it back and then push it forward, it kind of does that thrusting ability that he had that was normally mapped to the triangle button. So that's kind of one thing that's changed. I guess majorly the battle system is the hugest thing that's been refined and changed for Judgment Disc.
For the better or for the worse,
Very much for the
or
better.
Aaron's opinion or anyone's opinion? Like, how do you feel the battle system has evolved from Dusky to Judgment demo?
Well, I think I mean there is quite a bit of a difference between both. Sorry, Ace is
Yep.
like me.
That's
Sorry.
Aaron's
Problems.
dog, by the way. So maybe I'll jump in real quickly. Major rehaul from episode to Sky, and then a lot more tuned from Platinum demo. And I guess the biggest thing, as I mentioned before, is just kind of repurposing a lot of the abilities. We have magic now. Magic pretty much works like you expect it to, like what you've seen so far. It works kind of like a grenade system, where you have a wind up button, pretty much have like an area of effect that it can shoot out to.
That sounds like a good way to kind of describe the magic. It makes sense. Like, a lot of it is just lobbing in it. Good point.
Do you think?
Oh, Tony, did you play it on PS4 or do you have the Pro as well?
Unlike Erren, I played this on the regular PlayStation 4, but I'm curious to see what.
Oh my gosh.
So
I
are the
played it on
technical-
both.
Okay, so you actually know then, Aaron, or probably the best. What Damian was alluding to is like he played on the Pro and was like it was pretty good. What about the difference between the 4 and the Pro? Is the Pro worth it?
Like if you only have a standard PS4, the game still looks pretty good, but I mean, jumping to the Pro, the difference is actually pretty noticeable. Not only do you get the full, like if you have a 1080p TV, it's going to be a solid 1080p, unlike the standard PS4, which runs at a dynamic 900p to 1080p. So it's going to be a little softer image on the standard PS4. And then on so the Pro actually has 2 modes right now, and they're actually working on more for a patch in December. But the current, at least in the demo, you could use a high image quality mode or just a lightweight mode, which the lightweight mode is pretty close to the standard PS4. The only difference being it's locked at 1080p rather than a dynamic resolution, and then the high image quality mode actually turns on a lot of graphical effects, so you get like better anti-aliasing, a better filtering, better foliage, just better looking textures all around actually, and like it just looks really clean in that mode. So I was definitely impressed, switching back and forth there to see the differences.
So
That's good to know. I'm not gonna be missing out on too much. Right?
Yeah, I mean,
regular
they
ass
are gonna,
PS4.
like I said, in December they're gonna have even more stuff for Pro. Like, they're aiming for like a 60 frames per second mode that you'll be able to use, which is pretty cool.
That'd be great, but I'm just hoping that it's not gonna look like trash on my
Yeah,
PS4.
I mean, like the high image quality mode runs at 30 frames a second, and that's fine. Like,
it's good enough.
I didn't really have a problem with it. I thought it looked nice. and you know, that's kind of what was sort of really important for me, because the engine, it really benefits from the better hardware.
Cool. Yeah, it seems like it definitely will. Sounds like Pro is still kind of the way to go if you have the option. Maybe not miss.
Yeah.
I will say though, I have a regular PS4, and my plan is to just use OG PS4 for launch, and then maybe upgrade later on.
That's my plan too.
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing is you don't need to buy like another version to enjoy those benefits.
That's definitely where Sony did the right thing with how they're going to introduce the PS4 Pro, because I'm like, I don't feel any pressure that I need to get it right now to get the most out
exactly.
of like 15, or I have to go buy drop $60 more, getting a PS4 Pro version.
I can only imagine like the backlash that would have gone on if that would have been the case.
Oh yeah, I mean, I would never purchase a PS4 Pro if I had to rebuy games for it. They did the right thing, so let's upgrade later on.
Yeah, so like realistically, if you want the best visual experience with the game, it's definitely on Pro right now until they get around to doing a PC version, whenever that is.
Yeah.
But like I said before, the standard PS4 version is still, it still looks pretty nice.
It does, and I was definitely impressed that they got it. I mean, I'll just say it right now, those 2 months definitely helped the game.
I mean, when we saw the game back in August, I'm not gonna lie, it looked really rough. I think
decidedly less so now with Judgment.
The one thing that kept coming to mind was like, wow, this looks like they smudged a big Vaseline filter over the entire game, and like now though it's very clean. The visuals stand out quite a bit, and it runs pretty solidly. I think for the most part it stays at a solid 30 frames, so the delay was definitely worth it.
Good. That's good to know.
I think like a major thing for me though, sorry to interject, but
no.
Like the texture pop in that I had seen on gameplay videos earlier was just like, oh guys, you gotta fix that. Like
oh right, yeah, there was that. Like even stuff that was like super up close, I remember seeing like for example, a cutscene would start and then the texture wouldn't be there for a couple of seconds, and you'd be like, oh, well.
Some Assassin's Creed level crap right there.
So it was definitely jarring, and it really kind of tarnished the presentation that they were going for there.
Especially since they're trying to go like very high fidelity.
Yeah,
see that?
people cried about the delay, but honestly, they really, they really needed it, and it shows. And I feel like people should at least appreciate that much.
So, in the Judgment Dome, are you guys able to like level up a little bit? That's one part of the game I'm
Yeah,
kind
you
of
can.
most concerned with, or not concerned, but like I'm kind of curious how
Well,
it works.
basically, it's if you remember
Or
Disc
for you guys.
Sky, it's kind of the same concept where you go around and
Get your
you
EXP,
get
you level up when you
experience from
rest.
fighting things, and you get experience from doing quests and the main story. And then to actually level up, you still need to do the camping thing. So in the demo, you can actually do this, and they let you try out just like the regular camping, the caravan camping, and you can even go to this hotel. But I think it's like 10,000 gil to stay at this hotel, which is a little ridiculous, especially since it's actually kind of hard to come by gil in the game so far from what I've noticed. So definitely like
Make sure to pick things up.
well, not only that, but I mean you might as well just camp.
See, my strategy with it is like if I know that I've got a lot of experience under my belt and I have gil, I will actually take the time to actually drive to the place where I know has the biggest EXP boost modifier. So, say you go camping at a regular spot, right? It's going to have a EXP boost modifier of times 1.0,
Mhm.
and if you camp out in a caravan, it's like 1.2.
Yeah, I remember there was like a caravan that like would boost your experience overall, and then another thing that maybe like your food was lasted longer. I forget, but there
Yeah.
were like different benefits to resting in different places
So
in this guide.
yeah, so the deal is if you camp at a campsite and you have Ignis cook for you, like it'll you won't get a big EXP boost modifier, but you'll get buffs for the next day. If you sleep in a caravan, you don't cook anything for that night, but you get an EXP boost modifier that's higher than camping.
So it's kind of like a trade-off, whether your
Yeah.
buffs maybe big scary monster stay
And
or
yeah, I mean, like, and what I also found is like if you slept at a motel, you would get, I think maybe it's 1.2 or 1.5, I'm not sure. But if you stay at the super ritzy like Golden Key Hotel, it's an EXP boost modifier of 2.0, so double EXP that you earn for the day gets tallied there. But on the flip side, you're spending 10,000 gold there for one night. So depending on the amount of EXP you have, like that's probably going to determine like what you're going to do with it. Like, so that was kind of my strategy, and I was able to get some pretty good levels off that.
what
However,
about the
though,
ability points and stuff like that? Like,
like
all that
the
sort of
ability upgrade
ability.
system.
Like, what do you
Yeah.
think about that? Because I haven't gotten to see that hands-on myself yet. I was kind of
Michael probably has the most experience with this so far, so
Well,
go.
I mean, technically, my the most I tried to pay attention to it was actually in Judgment Disc, and it was all in Japanese. So, but it did look a little bit. What do I want to say? I don't. I hate comparing everything to the Sphere Grid system, especially since we just got off World of Final Fantasy, and that was like pretty much very inspired by the Sphere Grid system. What was the other one? Like they all make up shapes. Are they constellations or just like
yeah,
symbols
they're
from
kind of
like
like
the world of
star-shaped
the game?
constellations. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it looked pretty typical fare, honestly. Like there seemed to be each of the characters seem to have one of three directions to go in for their abilities. So there looks like there's some there's a little bit more flexibility from the get go, other than just unless those are just literally just here's more strength, here's more HP or something like that. It looked like it was a little bit more significant than that, though. It looked like it was more of like skill tree paths, almost like slightly. I could be wrong. What they were doing in Judgment Disc. Yeah, but I don't know how much it's terribly going to have an impact on the gameplay, because there's been nothing I've seen so far that truly takes advantage of having some unique skill. It seems like magic is the one thing that can make or break certain fights, make them like way too easy compared to if you're just going to go in there with your your melee based weapons, like Noctis's swords and stuff like that, long sword, spear, the the daggers, whatever. Like spells can just wreck hard groups of mobs and or do a ton of damage to bosses if you mix them up the right way, like combine the right elements and stuff like that. It seems so. And I think we talked about this earlier, like when we were talking about the revision they made to this, whether it's really going to have that big of an impact. I haven't played enough to really say one way or the other, but I do think it's ultimately not really going to make that big of a deal. I could be wrong, but it didn't seem like it was anything special.
So it
Yeah.
sounds like you think it's going to be mostly like tank and spank mobs and stuff like that. So like you don't really need
Well,
all
I
these
mean,
fancy abilities.
There are some abilities you can unlock in it, like for your party members, for example, you get Libra out
Oh,
of
that's
here.
nice.
So it is
Yeah.
like Fear Grid in that sense.
Doesn't
Cool.
Noctis
I
get
like
like
that.
more aerial abilities or something?
Yeah,
He
yep.
gets.
So he can get like
Yeah.
an air step ability.
Yeah, I think it looks like
That's
Kingdom
cool.
Hearts, in which it's just going to make combat faster. Like you'll get through stuff quicker because you have more abilities to be more agile and faster. It seems like it, but again, nothing in like Kingdom Hearts is like felt like it was like crucial other than like spells. Like certain spells work better against the boss or certain tactics, but I don't think it's going to go as in depth as even Kingdom Hearts, in my opinion. It seems like it's just going to be,
What you see is what you get, kind of.
yeah, I don't think that's where their focus is on this time with the game. I don't think they wanted to overly complicate the battle system too much.
I mean, in its base level, it's already pretty complex because there's weapons you can choose from, so many magics you can create, all that customizations. That's probably what the complexity.
I think I think like a big thing for me was like weaving together combos. I think like my favorite thing to do was like and I spent 7 hours last Saturday streaming the demo just because I needed to get all of it out of my system before the real game. So in the demo, there's you can find a bioblaster, which is it's kind of a machinery based weapon, and it's got like a kind of like a charge up attack, and you can kind of let it go and it just blam hits an enemy, or you can hit another button and it basically spreads poison over the field and will poison enemies around you.
Yeah, that's one of Edgar's.
Yeah. One
Or
of
not.
Edgar's tools. Yeah, they have like a bunch of. I remember seeing like auto crossbow, bio
Yep, I
blaster.
saw auto crossbow. I think I remember hearing that chainsaws in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I mean, there's been some other crazy stuff. So what I would do is I would use the spear to close distance with the enemies, then switch to the daggers to just. Because what the spear would do is it would inflict. It would usually when you're warp striking with the spear, it'll usually make a big enemy like those rhinos. It'll make them tip over, and then once you tip them over, then you go to
Get in
town
there.
with the daggers, right?
Sweet, sweet soft underbelly.
Yep, carve it up a bit, and then once you carve it up a bit, you switch. You hit D-pad. I hit D-pad down to my bioblaster and just load it up for maybe, and you kind of underload it maybe by a second or so, but it still does a ton of damage, and then just blam, like just tons of damage, and it's really satisfying. And it's something that they've really changed from episode to Sky, but weaving in and out combos with the D-pad feels really good. It's probably one of the funnest things I've had playing around the system so far. Another thing is throwing a spear up into a flying bird enemy that's flying way up in the air, and then like kind of hovering a little bit by shooting the gun, which is so weird to play as, like, because we've only had just like weapons. We haven't had like a firearm for Noctis yet. So like throwing a spear up into a bird, then shooting it 3 times, but then using the triangle button again to warp strike back into it, and then hitting it again, and then just doing like these weird. It's very weird looking, but also very cool looking, and yeah. I actually went in and in the options menu, luckily, you can actually turn the HUD off. And so once I got familiar with the battle system, I kind of went around and just started killing stuff without the HUD on, and it looks so good. Oh, it was so good. like the animations in this game are just so nice.
So it sounds like the battle system is a lot of fun. There's a lot of mixing and kind of spice it up a little bit and keep it from getting stale. So that's good to know.
It's come such a long way, and I'm glad that it's come to a place where I personally really enjoy it. So I'm gonna be curious to see. You know, it seems like we have like seven-ish, eight-ish categories of weapons. I want to see, what kind of mayhem we can inflict, and hopefully it's lots of really fanciful death animations. Because what I've seen so far with the parry links and the team up stuff, it's so cool.
Yeah, the warp strikes also felt not just against enemies, but it felt like there were more opportunities, and they actually let it out of its cage a little bit more in the Judgment Disc demo, being able to teleport strike to different objects and stuff. Whereas it felt like in episode Dusk Sky, they really didn't want you using that a lot. It was like, what happened to this ability where it can? There's a high rock. Can I go to that? Oh, there's a pole over here. Can I warp to that? No. Oh, okay, that's cool. Your trailers only hyped that up so much. I couldn't do it. It definitely felt like there was more opportunities to do it in the Judgment Disc from the little portion of gameplay that was there. So that made me feel better about it. That I was like, okay, like we're going to be using that a lot more. It's not going to be this like gimmick novelty that you use every so often and that's it.
So aside from obviously getting to our favorite mechanic, Cindy again, what was everyone's favorite bit about the Judgment? Like, what was the lasting impression of your like, okay, maybe this game won't be too bad, or like, what's your favorite takeaway from?
I guess altogether, like the combat and the exploration, just finally being able to just do it, like to see it in a more final presentation really kind of sold it to me. I feel like the combat system is definitely going to be able to carry this game. But I feel like I'm kind of curious to see, like, so what kind of interesting things are they going to do with this? Like, so you have this warp strike ability. How are we going to see this implemented in different ways? How are we going to see this implemented in like creative ways? I want to see them really kind of use this cool ability in kind of creative ways, because if for however long the game takes me to beat, like if we're just using warp strike in the same general way, then I'll be a little bit disappointed, because I feel like it's such a cool mechanic, and if they don't use it in a cool way, then I'll be disappointed. So I guess like overall, Judgment Disc has me really excited about the combat. I feel the exploration. I really like exploring on foot. And like I
More
mentioned
so than the
before,
car?
yeah, actually, I mean the
I'm tripping with that.
car, like the car, I don't know. It's the car. Like it's just, to me, it's like it's important. Like I'm not at a point yet where I can value its importance, but at the same time, like once we explore more of these areas and we open up more of the world, then obviously you're gonna want that car to not have to run 80 billion miles across this huge game world. But I guess the biggest thing for me is just like like I said, like turning off the HUD and then just like running along with like the sun setting and stuff like that, and having the music fade in, and then oh god, I love the Shimamura's. I think it's called Valsti Fantastica. Um, I think it's probably my favorite theme in the game, but like having that like filter in, and it's kind of like how Final Fantasy 14 does it. Like outside of battles, like the music will just like start to filter in. There are
Right.
areas like Golden Key and like Hammerhead that have like their own music that just goes on repeat like normal. But when you're out and about and exploring, like the music will filter in here and there, and I thought that was also like pretty atmospheric and cool. So overall, I guess my impression is that it set me up for the world. The story, well, the story we've pretty much kind of seen everything in it so far. There's nothing new here. There's a lot of side quests that have been taken out too, so there's really nothing here that we haven't seen already. So yeah,
What about you,
combat.
Erren? What was your favorite lasting Judgment demo?
I mean, Tony really covered a lot of what I actually agree with. For me, the soundtrack I think really shined through in the demo, and a lot of that stuff we hadn't really got to hear before.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in the other demos, they kind of had like a couple tracks and that was it. But
Right.
this time we got to hear a little bit more, and the other thing that I really liked was seeing some of the character interaction, which was another thing that was really kind of absent in the other demos. This time they kind of it gave you a little taste of what to expect as far as like the four guys and what they mean to each other and how they're actually going to go through the game and how their story is going to unfold. So being able to see like the very beginnings of the stories was probably the most interesting part that I really wanted to see there.
All right. What about you, Damiani? Is there anything take away from Judgment demo for you, or is it kind of like, kind of like been there, done that, but more?
I spent an unnecessary amount of time driving in the car with Final Fantasy 13 music playing,
Nice.
imagining what it will be like as soon as that Lightning DLC hits sometime next year.
Can't wait.
Where I can dress as Lightning.
Oh,
and
I did like the
got
car
one pre-order.
music. They had the Final Fantasy VII soundtrack.
Ooh,
And
my favorite.
my favorite track to annoy people with is the gold saucer theme.
Oh my god. Yes.
Oh
So,
yeah.
are y'all
Gonna
gonna listen to Under the Weight from 14 as you're driving to
Trying to fight Titan? Hell
Titan?
yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I'm actually I actually wish there was more 14 songs in the game, but unfortunately
Can't have them all. That's why we have 14.
Yeah,
And
that's
the
true. Like,
soundtracks.
they
Duality.
released the full track list, and for some reason there's like a million songs from Dissidia. I don't get it, but
The
there it
Cydia's
is.
songs are like all just remixes of
Yeah,
classic
I mean,
Final
that's-
songs.
exactly. It's kind of bizarre, but
Whatever.
yeah.
Maybe it was like maybe this is a little mean to say. Maybe this is the least amount of work they had to do to put the song in because it's already kind of in decent quality.
Possibly, who knows? I don't know. I think the track selection is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Too many battle themes. I think I just like. I don't know. Like if you're driving around in a car, like there's no car combat from what I've. So I felt like I don't know. I felt like more traveling songs was. I remember listening a lot. I put on Crazy Motorcycle Chase because that's like
You have to.
that's obligatory.
Oh
and
yeah.
then Blue Fields from Final Fantasy VIII. That's like
good
a given.
too.
What else was in the demo? I think like the Final Fantasy V world map theme. Okay. So track list.
Here we go.
Dear Friends from Final Fantasy V is not in there. Like that. What? How?
Paid DLC.
You know,
Oh man.
I wouldn't doubt it. But yeah, pretty good music selection. Maybe a little bit more kind of driving themes. I feel like they kind of just picked a lot of just the popular songs out of the soundtracks, and maybe not ones that necessarily fit.
So maybe just like safer choices of like, oh, people like this song, people like that song.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't see how One Winning Angel is gonna in a car. Like I don't.
Never underestimate people's love for that song.
Imagine like being at a stoplight with like you look over and these four guys dressed in black are just blasting One Wing Angel. I'd love that. Yeah, I mean, I can do like a really great segue now into the next topic that maybe people want to hear about.
So-
which of these songs do you think Conan would have liked the most?
That's a tough one.
If they even got to the driving
Probably-
section.
Probably the Sunlit Waterscape, but I'm sure he'd like that one.
That song. But
Yeah, Conan. Conan did a thing.
I hope everyone has seen it who's listening to this. If not, you should go watch it. His Clueless Gamer segment. Because who knew Final Fantasy 15 would be on Clueless Gamer with Conan O'Brien.
Yeah, we didn't learn until like the day of, didn't we?
I had no idea what was happening until the video was already posted.
Yeah, I think we learned like the day of. Like the dude that kind of hosts it with him, he tweeted it out. Hey, like we're gonna do Final Fantasy 15 tonight. Be sure to watch.
Yeah, it basically came out of nowhere, and I was like, whoa. I mean, Square's had games on there before, but they've all been their
Tomb Raider,
Western
right?
stuff.
The Western games, yeah. I think he did Tomb Raider.
Yeah, I think he did do Tomb Raider. I think maybe one other too.
So yeah,
I assume all three of you
yeah.
have seen it, right? Seen this segment?
Oh,
yeah.
What do you guys
I
think?
thought it was good. It was funny.
I thought it was funny. I really enjoyed it.
I laughed way too hard.
Yeah, it
Maybe a
was-
little bit too
it
much
was
truth.
Like, they even had
Oh,
Elijah Wood on there, and I was really wanting him to make some more One Ring jokes because, you know, in the game, there's that one ring.
How fitting is it? Oh.
What does Conan say?
This-
It's like Lord of the Rings meets Entourage. Oh.
He said a few things.
Is he wrong? I mean,
I don't think he's that wrong.
I mean, it's all in jest. He wasn't, you know, attacking the game or anything.
well, I don't know. You wouldn't know that, you know, depending on some of the stuff I've read in the last week. But holy heck, people, calm down.
Like,
Yeah.
I will say I think I've seen all of those segments of that bit that he does. That was probably the one, longest, and two, angriest I've seen him at a game. I think most of it's an act because like he doesn't really care, right? But man, pretty convincing some of the things he was saying that I thought he was like legitimately getting upset. Like I liked when he like opened the door. He's like, "This door is the only thing separating us from the people who made this game." It's like they're hearing this right now as I'm saying it. And when he yelled at them, it was pretty funny.
Yeah. I thought, you know, like the whole thing was hilarious.
So good.
I think we actually got to see like some new stuff debuted on Conan. We actually saw like a bit of like Alticia. We saw the huge Adamantoise too.
Mhm.
Huge. So okay. People are saying it's taking 72 hours to beat it. I don't think it's going to be 72 in-game hours. 72 real-world hours. I
Yeah.
think it's going to be 72 in-game like three Final Fantasy 15 days, not 72 real-world days.
Yeah, and I mean, even then, it'll probably just depend on how leveled you are.
How much side questing you do. I mean, if we're talking like straight through the main storyline, those have never been traditionally extremely long in Final Fantasy. Yeah, like 20, 30 hours, but like a lot of people I think side quests, don't they? I mean, I remember like Final Fantasy 7, their whole third disc is literally just Northern Crater, which isn't very long. So I don't know.
So
Are we concerned about the length of the game? That might be a little bit too short.
I don't know. Like it's weird because like, you know, the first good chunk of this seems to be very much like an open world game. So like I feel like it's definitely going to be like a mileage may vary kind of a thing. Like if you like going off doing your own thing, minus all this extra shit, I could see you doing like 40 hours before you even get to the supposed more linear section of the game, more narrative focused section of the game. However, if you want to get to that ending and you got to see that ending, then you're probably gonna go through it a bit fast. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, you could say that about any RPG, really, though.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you're really focused, you could get Final Fantasy IX done in under 12 hours.
You
Get
sure
that
can.
Excalibur 2.
That Excalibur 2.
Of course, you got to probably play through a few times before you even get close to being comfortable.
And pop open the PS1 disc thing
Yeah.
to skip the cutscenes. I am curious, after the game comes out, we've all played through it, how we're going to think about it compared to other Final Fantasy games. Like, especially now in terms of length, thinking about that and Final Fantasy feel. I'm kind of curious.
Yeah,
I've never
it'll be
had so much
interesting.
build up for a Final Fantasy title before.
Well, I mean, the last one that really took more than 3 years was what, 12?
I think so.
5 years for 12 to come out.
12 was announced in 2003, I think, and then came out in 2006.
It was before that, I think.
Gosh, maybe I'm thinking of
So
something
I
else.
remember sitting. This is like super random story, but I remember sitting in 10th grade, which was 2001, 2002 or so, and me and some friends had this game magazine, and inside they talked about like the different Final Fantasy titles coming out, and there was an article about how 12 was in development, and I distinctly remember this because we were like, what? 12?
Yeah, maybe it was longer, because like I remember in the initial part of it, Sakaguchi was involved too, before all that lovely stuff went down at Square. But yeah, must have been like 2001 or 2 that they kind of started hinting at
Yeah,
it.
Wikipedia is saying this is actually really funny. Since we're talking about 15, Wikipedia is saying that as of July 30th, 2008, 12 held the Guinness World Records for the longest development period for video game production. That took 5 years from 2001 until 2006.
Well,
so it looks like it was like started in 2000, released in 06. 5 years. It's half of a 15.
Let's see, 15. So sorry, I was listening, but I also got a funny text message. Spell 15. So apparently, people can get it around where I live tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, so apparently I'm going to a store tomorrow to pick it up.
Are we talking about like an Ultimate Collector's Edition that shipped early?
No,
or are we talking
no,
about...
no. We're talking about stores who have it already, who have seen other stores selling it. So like, yeah, we'll sell it too. What's the harm at this point?
that's it's kind of funny actually.
Yeah, I was laughing pretty hard. Because I called up just and go, so hey, can I still pre-order Final Fantasy 15? They're like, oh yeah, you just have to come by in person to get it, or to do the pre-order or pay for it. I'm like, all right, so when's it supposed to come out again? Like, what's the release date? It's coming tomorrow.
Oh man.
Wow.
I kind of like, oh yeah, that's right.
Care.
Tomorrow's Tuesday. New game's coming out Tuesday. That's right.
Yeah, that's true. Man,
Happy Thanksgiving, Michael. Jeez.
Yeah, no kidding. It's funny because they basically, like, it sounds like they ship this thing out like 2 weeks in advance.
Yeah, so much for that extra, time.
Hey, day one patch.
Game was printed and shipped already.
Jeez.
Isn't that just amazing that that's how it ends? That after all this time and wait, it's just such a big.
It's just out here and there.
Did they not hit? They couldn't even hit the September 30th release date, but it seems so many people or not so many people, but people are getting their hands on it early. That you know what? I just want to say this, not just a 15 thing, but it seems like nowadays, this generation, anytime a game misses its release date and it's only pushed back anywhere from like a month to 2 to 3 months, it seems that people get the game early. And
Yeah.
like it ships early, it's still in stores early, which makes me wonder: is this quality excuse really BS sometimes? Like, was all that quality stuff going to be done in time, but for some other reason they wanted extra time for who knows what the heck what? It's just a little weird that this keeps happening. What was No Man's Sky was the last big one, like had the delay, but people got it early because it's shipped at its original release date. It's like, oh, okay, that so much for doing any updates to that game.
Yeah, it's just been kind of a weird phenomenon lately that I don't know. It's just I feel like I don't know. It's like we've already had the ending like completely leak, and so we're not going to talk, of course, about the contents of it, but like the ending is out there. The God, there's like so much gameplay footage that's already out there, and part of it's like some of these countries getting it early, but then another part of it's too is just like people are like usually it feels like there would be stricter watchdogging on like YouTube and Twitch, and now it seems like it's like everywhere now. Like you could maybe within like 3 clicks hit like a Final Fantasy 15 spoiler video. And I don't know like how fast Square is able to take them down. I'm not really sure like the process of how that actually happens, and you know what kind of process that goes through, and like how much time it takes. But it seems like with the amount of people that have it now, like it's gonna be a real tough battle for people to stay unspoiled, even on social media. Like maybe if you try like blacklisting hashtags
Yeah.
or
I mean, somebody on my timeline just like outright posted something without a hashtag or anything already, and I was like, well, I guess that's the thing.
but like the whole thing about spoilers too, like for me, like it's more about the journey. And like I mean Final Fantasy 15, like I mean the game is kind of about a road trip and a journey, so I mean yeah, maybe you've seen a few spoilers here and there, maybe you've seen a little bit of the ending, but I mean I think the journey is what's going to make or break this game, no matter what you think of whatever ending you saw. So I don't know, like to me, like I don't know, it seems like if you've seen that stuff, it feels like there's still so much of the game that I feel like is just kind of a mystery.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's actually a study that's been done that says people who blatantly go out of their way to, read or see spoilers actually feel more excitement when they're actually going through the movie or the book or the game or whatever, to actually get to that point because they want to see how everything unfolds. So, I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, in a sense, like it does generate buzz about the game. You'll never believe this game's ending. And so,
Hour 32 will shock you. That's kind of true though, because so I am behind on Westworld, but I heard
Oh,
last week there was like
man.
there was a big thing. People were making a big deal out of it.
Oh, yeah.
I had to find out what it was, and I was like, oh, like I kind of guessed that, but now I'm like really curious, like how does that make sense? It makes me want to watch it more than it did before if I didn't know the spoilers. So I can kind of see where it's kind of almost like you're getting a
Man, I
taste, and
can't
you're
believe
like,
you went out of your way to see that spoiler.
well, it was on like IO9 or something like that. Whatever.
Well, I mean,
so
when it showed up, like, I was just watching it, and, like, all of a sudden it was there, and I was like, well,
My like
that's,
whole Facebook newsfeed just blew up, and like the
yeah.
internet is just like, oh, Westworld, and I was like, I need to know.
Yeah, it was certainly shocking.
hmm
So
But
on
so
the
like
subject of
there
spoilers,
it
though,
is.
I mean, like, so I mean, I feel like I definitely fall in the camp of I like to spoil myself and
Yeah,
then see
I mean,
how it
I'll
gets
admit
there.
that I do too.
And you know, I'll admit, like, there's kind of like a social aspect of engaging in spoiling yourself that's kind of cool because it feels like, you know, hey, well,
Ooh, did you hear
I
about
know
that? And
exactly. And then but like part of it for me though, part of it for me is like then observing people who haven't been spoiled legitimately react to the spoiler itself.
yeah,
Because
I definitely agree.
yeah, so to me, like spoilers, I don't know, it kind of depends. Like there's some things that I don't want to be spoiled on, but like there are things that I'll go out of my way to just like can say. Maybe like a bare Cliff Notes like example, like maybe one or two sentences of what the ending is, but then because like what I like talking about Final Fantasy, I like talking with people about like what they like and what they don't like, and like kind of having a pre-knowledge or you know idea of where you know some of this is gonna go. Like it helps me kind of observe people and what they think about how this unfolded, and it's kind of interesting to see people react in different ways. And well, that's definitely happening. So it's always been very fascinating to me. So spoilers for me, like I don't know, maybe it's just because I've been part of the Final Fantasy like both me and Aaron have done this for so long. Like we've been used to kind of inadvertently spoiling ourselves because we've had to cover news and so on for so long. Like you kind of inadvertently spoil yourself because you want to be able to present stuff in a way that
Yeah.
so it kind of just happens. But then I feel like in that way I've kind of groomed myself into like a behavior that you know I don't mind spoilers and but I like to see how they get there and how like the pieces get to that point. And then the other part is like observing people and how they react to like legitimate being have it being like a legitimate shock. So has I'm gonna ask you has there ever been a point where you felt like you shouldn't spoil yourself on something or maybe
Um,
maybe you saved maybe you waited and you were faithful and you watched it through like you should and then the spoiler that people were talking about was either totally lame or the spoiler
yeah.
was like oh, wow, I totally saw that
Hmm. For some reason, I find myself usually going into Naughty Dog games unspoiled.
coming.
I feel like because those games are so narrative heavy, I don't like I just subconsciously don't go out of the way to get spoiled because their games kind of aim for more emotional attachment
Hmm.
and like Uncharted 4, you know, I saw a couple of the big E3 trailers, but after that I was like, nope. I'm just gonna avoid the internet. I think it was also that way for The Last of Us, which actually had some really powerful moments that like I had no idea about. So you know, I can see it going both ways. Uh, in that sort of way, but yeah, I mean, it just depends. Like, if it's something that I'm really curious about, then maybe I'll look. Like, for example, Star Wars Episode 7.
Hmm.
I basically knew the entire script going into the movie.
I was so tempted to do that, let me tell you. I was so scared for that movie and
Yeah, I
turned
was
out
too,
okay.
and that's why I spoiled myself. Like, I was like, well, I really just want to see what they're doing with this. I have no idea if it's going to be good or not. I want to, you know, see how everything is laid out in the plot, and so I spoiled myself. And you know, even though I did, there was, you know, it was still like getting up to those moments where I was like, oh, how's this gonna happen? And you know, there was still, I guess, that sense of impact for me that, you know, oh wow, this really did happen.
So
So What
New
about?
Pokemon just came out. I stayed completely via blackout after the leaks hit. So
Well,
there's a whole chunk of that game I know nothing about, where everyone else knows everything and has seen all the Pokemon,
so
and I'm going through it.
is it
So
more like a story thing, or is it like gameplay, or like do you want to be
oh,
surprised by
this
like Pokemon? Or
I
because I
want to be
feel
surprised by Pokemon. Like it's fun because like the whole thing is like when there's new, it's like you want to see what they are, what types they are, and all that kind of stuff. So
so
it's
that
really
that
exciting to see them
yeah that,
first
that that
time.
it's like less the story, but more like maybe like the gameplay mechanics of it, or
Hmm. And
yeah.
then for 15, I had to look at those 4chan leaks. I'm like,
Oh
I
boy.
actually debated that for the longest time. I'm like, this is probably going to be legit. This is probably actually going to be the end. I had to be okay with it, and I was like, okay. So I looked at them, and I'm like, this is actually like a lot of people were like, oh, this is dumb. Like this is not good. I'm like, I'm kind of curious how they get there if those end up being completely factual. I find it intriguing. It makes me want to play the game more to find out how, like you're saying, Aaron, like how does it all come together? Like what? Like this sounds dumb when you say it in a sentence, maybe.
right, but like once you know that it's there, like
But
you
is it really dumb when they put it in context?
right, and you like anticipate it, like you're waiting for it to happen. Like,
Like how are they
oh,
gonna
like
do it? How are they gonna
when
put it
when is
together?
this gonna show up? And
Mm-hmm.
oh, and then when it does, you're like, there it is.
But there it is.
Daviani, have you had a similar experience in Zelda where you're just like, I can't spoil myself. I can't spoil myself. And then maybe you spoil yourself. Or then maybe do you just go in completely fresh every time?
I've been fortunate in that the only major legit leaks for Zelda, um, I think there's only been one big one in terms of like story stuff, and that was when they data mined the Skyward Sword demo. Once it became available online and people started, like, it wasn't, Nintendo didn't officially distribute it, but someone was able to get it and add it online. And because Wii Homebrew was so easy to do, everyone was able to download it and play it. Um, we already had a review copy at Game Trailers, so I had already played through the entire game. And then I saw like the Reddit or 4chan posts with the person who said they data mined and the cutscenes were all labeled with like story stuff. They weren't like coded or random names or something. And they surmised what the plot was and put like in bullet point form. And I was reading through it. I was like, oh yeah, that is all legit. I was like, that all happens in the game. I was like, I'm kind of glad I got to play this game before I read that. So with Zelda, no. I was always worried it was going to happen with Game of Thrones. It apparently did. Apparently, season 7
Oh, I saw
stuff
those too.
leaked. I have not read those because I can wait. Like, it's not the end of the world. I don't need to know. I just know it's coming. That's good enough. Harry Potter was the one where I got struck by the.
Did you get the Dumbledore dies one?
Yeah, basically
Spoilers.
everything in book 6 was spoiled for me.
Oh, that's
before
terrible.
before I got to the movie, because I was trying to just watch the movies.
Oh
So
dear.
I gave up, and once book 7 came out, I just read. I read book 7 to avoid the spoilers. And like that night after I finished reading it, because I like just spent all day reading it, I remember I went online and I was reading some message board, and like the second like reply post was a troll post with like page so and so, page 60 something, so and so dies. It was like every major character that died in the 7th book.
I remember
page they die
seeing
on.
something about that.
Yeah, and I was like, I am so glad I read that. And then actually most recently, earlier this year or some point, it was Naruto. I read the manga to read the ending because I was like, the anime is going to take forever to get to this. I think it may actually have been last year. I was like, no, manga, I got to the last real chapter. I read that. I was like, well, that's good because this is going to be like the most spoiled thing. And ended up, that one probably wouldn't have been too big of a deal, honestly. That one I don't think would have been as bad reading those spoilers, I think, because nothing really earth-shattering happens. It's cool looking, but nothing ridiculous happens. Not like tons of characters dying like in Harry Potter or Game of Thrones. Like, it didn't approach that level. So I don't think that would be an issue. My issue with spoilers is sometimes I like to figure things out on my own, like drawing the conclusions or noticing something. And sometimes people who have the spoilers, they also have that information, and they like to disclose that as well. And even it basically goes a little too far. I think more than just telling you what happens story wise, they draw conclusions for you sometimes, and that's where I think I'd get a little pissed off. Is where you take any of the thinking out of the experience of experiencing the story essentially.
Yeah, that's why I don't really mind single sentences. Like I saw the Game of Thrones spoilers because, like, again, I'm just like, I have to see what they could possibly be, and I'm like, okay, I can see that, I can see that, I can see that, but you kind of like, you still want to know character motivations and how it all comes together, which is
Right, because
kind of intriguing.
you've invested so much into those characters. I
Yeah.
mean, you know, you're not going to read a sentence and say, "Well, I've watched that season." Like you want to see how it all plays out. And so, I mean, like spoilers. I mean, rarely have they ever like completely turned me off of something.
It would be
And
different if we were sitting here like going through like a spoiler cast and like saying like, here's everything that happened in one thing, you know, and drawing conclusions like Damian was saying. Like that's shitty. That's something you people don't really want to do.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, we will all be spoiled come next week.
Some of us probably already were spoiled and are unhappy about it. There's always people like that.
Yeah, I mean, in this stage,
I'm excited for our spoiler cast of 15 after
Yeah.
all this lead up.
Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely do one of those.
Yeah, we're probably gonna do that, and then we'll have 3.5 stuff for Final Fantasy 14. Probably gonna save that for a little bit of a later episode because there'll be more 14 stuff coming up closer towards Christmas time.
Oh yeah, Japanese Fan Fest.
Oh
yeah,
my gosh.
Right on
Big
Christmas.
announcement.
Yeah, Japanese Fan Fest on Christmas Eve.
That's gonna be a big one, man. That's gonna be a big. Oh, wait, it's on Christmas Eve.
Yes.
Yeah, it's on Christmas.
Son of a.
I'm
not
staying
buying
home.
that stream.
I'm staying home this year, so
Yeah.
I will be up. I'll be like, yep.
Hopefully it's early in the morning or something, so I can actually watch it.
Mhm.
Yeah, they haven't announced like any stream stuff yet, so we're still kind of waiting. But I guarantee Japan will have like all of
everything.
really
I need
good
to see that.
information.
So, Final Fantasy 15 coming out in a week. I just feel like I want to touch on, based on everything that we've seen so far, what do you think that the game can most easily deliver on? Me, you probably heard me earlier. I think it's the combat. I think that, for the most part, I feel like that's in a really good place. What do you guys think that you're most confident in going into this game? And I'll start with Erren.
For me, aside from combat, like you said, I'm gonna have to say music because so far everything we've heard about the soundtrack just sounds really, really good. Like even like a step above some of the other Final Fantasy soundtracks. And I mean, realistically, there hasn't really been a Final Fantasy soundtrack that I've disliked, but I think we can say for sure that Shimomura's 15 soundtrack is going to be really something special.
Michael, what's your big takeaway?
I feel like the most positive thing I'm going to look into now, or I feel most comfortable with, since I have a PS4 Pro, is that it's going to look and run well. Basically, it just comes down to, is this story going to be any good? I know we'd already seen, even in the gameplay trailer, of the flash forward scene at the very beginning, or whatever heck it's supposed to be. Like, seeing it running in real time, I was just kind of like, yeah, there might be some cool twist in this game. I don't know. Who knows? I didn't read any of the spoilers, so I have no idea. So it comes down to, is the story going to be good? And is the game gonna be entertaining enough throughout. I don't want to feel like I'm getting bored just driving around or moving around from location to location in an open world, which tends to be like the risk of an open world game. You got to keep things engaging and not have so many sparse points within the game where it feels like you're just traversing and not even exploring. You're just trying to get to points, and it's like so. It's definitely improved a lot. It's definitely improved a lot, and I would give it like I feel 50-50 about it right now. 50% chance it's going to be pretty good and it was a worthwhile game, but the other half of me is like, this still could end up being a really underwhelming game, and who knows what the fallout from that will be. So, we'll see. But it definitely has left a better impression on me than it has in the past.
So, Mike, I'll ask you a little bit harder question, I guess. Not to single you out or anything, but
Oh yeah, sure.
so comparing how you feel now, comparing how you felt a couple months ago, comparing how you felt a year ago, do you feel that you are in a more positive place, a more worried place, a more concerned place, a more negative space, and why?
Well, like me with 15, I've been emotionally detached from it for quite a while. So I really didn't care because there's nothing concrete. Like I saw the versus stuff. The versus stuff looked cool. I'm like, I'm down fighting Behemoth in the city. I'm all in. Fighting Leviathan in a giant bay, cool as hell. So like, I think I fluctuated between positive and negative so much the past couple of months. I think I'm finally settled on being optimistic about it at the end. I think it's gonna end up being something that I want to play and I'm going to enjoy. I just don't know.
Too many
Um,
unknown
I'm
factors, you think, or
I-
just
I'm kind of excited to find out since there's so much hype for this one and we've been talking about it for so long. And this is like the first Final Fantasy I actually had to like talk about almost week to week instead of just like going about my business till it released. That I'm really curious to see where the Final Fantasy community or like, gaming community is gonna rank it in all Final Fantasies. Like, is it gonna be in the top half, or is it gonna be Final Fantasy 13 tier level of like despised by the community? Like, I'm really excited to see what this is gonna look like a couple months removed, and like what does it mean for like 16 going forward. I think I'm more curious about its legacy, since I think the game is going to be a solid enough game on its own. But whether it's going to be what everyone wants it to be, it won't be. It can't be.
yeah.
It can't be what everyone wants it to be. But I really like what I'm seeing so far. I bought into the road trip storyline from the get go. I love the Florence and the Machine theme. I know people don't like it. I like it because I'm a fucking sap, and any sort of emotional like pull like that instantly has me. So I don't know. I've been pretty optimistic about the themes of the game. Optimistic after reading the spoilers that were going around or possible leaks of the storyline. I'm optimistic about it, as crazy as that may sound. I think they can actually tell a pretty satisfying story. Will it be the best? Probably not. But will it be satisfying? Like, that's all I really care about. If I finish it, I'm like, all right, that was worth playing through. That was a story worth experiencing. Then I'll be happy with it. So I'm pretty optimistic they can deliver on what I need. I guess it's a low bar for what I want for it to be considered a good game for me. I don't know. I'm pretty optimistic about it right now.
So I want to touch a little bit on Final Fantasy and the series going forward and what Final Fantasy 15 means to us, and whether it's successful or not, what it's going to mean going forward, and what like this entire saga has taught us about what we can expect from Square and what they're trying to get out of us and what they feel that Final Fantasy can do It seems like a recurring theme for the past decade seems to be just this ongoing saga of trouble with HD development and how this is kind of all. It feels like in a way Final Fantasy 15 is almost the last chapter in kind of this ongoing troubling era of Square. And they're developing Final Fantasy and HD games in general. Um, I'm personally hoping that Final Fantasy 15 can just at the very least, be a solid game. I'm looking forward. I'm hoping it's good. What I've played of Judgment Disc has me really optimistic. Um, there are a lot of unknowns for me still, but at this point, I feel like they've really gotten like the theme of what they wanted to express down. I don't know if the story. It just seems like it's changed so many hands over the years, and I feel like we'll see what comes of it. But at this point, it just feels like I hope that Final Fantasy 15 can just be a learning experience for Square and Final Fantasy 14 too. That that maybe we can head into Final Fantasy 16 guns blazing this time. Maybe we don't need to be reassured as Final Fantasy fans every waking moment that the series isn't in life or death jeopardy, and maybe we can start Final Fantasy 16 off right with just showing off the ability, the creativity, the desire to do something new, the desire to take a series in a really ambitious, creative to a really cool new place. And that's what I've expected out of Final Fantasy, like at least the main series, every single time. It's like, what are we gonna do now that is just gonna completely leave you in awe? Final Fantasy 15 for me has been in this weird place where it's almost like apologizing for itself. And Final Fantasy 14 was in 13, in 13 too, almost felt like they were stuck in this never-ending era of apologizing for themselves and trying to get across to fans that, hey, we're still here, we can do this, guys. I want to see a new era of Final Fantasy that can finally break out of this and just become its new own confident thing that can really wow us again. And I'm not saying that 13, 14, and 15 were all failures. I feel that there were, for me personally, and I get a lot of flack for saying I like 13, the original 13. But it felt like the sequels definitely felt like that they were trying to like apologize to Final Fantasy fans as if they were saying, "Oh, hey, well you didn't like 13. Well, we have this sequel that's going to do everything right and it's going to, make up for, that first time that we got it wrong." Final Fantasy 14 1.0 was a disaster, and A Realm Reborn, thank God, was amazing, and then Heavensward went on to be probably one of the high points of the series for me. Um, but still, like, we still talk about like, hey, here's how Yoshida turned it around. I mean, we've gone through like ever since 2003 when Square Enix really. If you think about it, and it's really still amazing to me, the only Final Fantasy game that has its original director is 13. 12, we had Matsuno leave. 14, we had Tanaka leave. 15, we had Nomura leave. That's crazy. Like, to me, like, I really hope that 16 can build a really solid foundation for itself, not only in the development staff that it's choosing to hire, whoever they may be, um, the marketing too, and I'll just be real honest. I hate talking about marketing sometimes because I feel like I'm talking from an authoritative spot or place when I don't really know like what. Like, Square Enix obviously wants the game to appeal to a wide audience, right? So I mean, in a sense that when I say like I don't understand why they would do something like this, I'm talking from a personal standpoint. But sometimes when you talk about marketing and so on, sometimes it feels like you come off as like we would know more than what Square Enix would know. Like for example, I would say like the ATRs, for example. Though, like to me, I felt like it was a bit of an overkill. Like I felt like they were dispensing too little information spread over too long. But at the same time, you could definitely see like a lot of hardcore fans did really respond well to them, really did get hyped about it. Whereas maybe like a mainstream audience didn't really care too much until like the real marketing campaign kicked off. Um, Erren, just kind of like looking back on Final Fantasy XV's legacy, what would you say? What do you think is Square Enix's biggest lesson that they could learn from how things have gone with 15? And I mean, development, marketing, just
Well,
trying
I
to
mean,
convey
first
this
of all,
world.
don't announce things like so early. I mean, when they announced the Versus 13, it was basically, some concepts and a concept trailer, and over the years they released a few more trailers, and people grew attached to that stuff. I mean, I was one of them, and even up until 2013, they presented this promise. They said, hey, this is what you're going to get. We're turning this game into a mainline title. Everything is staying the same. It's just going to be on the new systems. And, suddenly a year later, it really wasn't. So, I mean, they really they can't announce anything early anymore. I feel like even Final Fantasy VII Remake was announced maybe a little too early. Especially if it doesn't make next year, or at least the first part of it. But because if you announce things early, people, like I said, they get these expectations and they build up, and then over time, once you finally get the game out, the game probably isn't going to meet those expectations no matter what you do. So it's really kind of been their downfall in that respect.
Michael, what do you think about like the 10 years of Final Fantasy 15? I don't know if you really like religiously followed it this much, but at the same time, it's like what's your big takeaway on what maybe Square could learn, what maybe even fans could take away from, you know, what would you have to say about like the whole role hype culture has played into like coming to expect Final Fantasy 15 is something maybe it won't ever be.
I mean, Erren, the biggest takeaway is what Erren said, that company, not just Square Enix, but all companies need to learn that the era of revealing a game is its existence basically when it's only in like conceptual stage. Like, hey, we had a team meeting the other day, and we decided we're going to make a sequel to this. So let's announce it at E3 next week. Even though we have zero to show about it and it won't be ready for years, let's do that. You can't do that anymore. That it doesn't work that way, and I do think that even announcing a game and it has 2 years to come out after it is kind of stretching the limit now that most, I think, consumers will tolerate, or even like that it will matter that you announced it that early. Like you announced it too early, it's not going to matter. Sorry. I would say like I hope Square Enix learns from that. They seem to be doing a better job, but not necessarily. I mean, we have Final Fantasy VII Remake and Kingdom Hearts 3, both which will not come out within 2 years of their announcement, most likely. Thus, they're still taking a while. I don't think they're going to take 10 years each, but they need to close the gap on that. I think those two were announced under very special circumstances. I have a feeling that's not the way they're going to do things going forward. But in terms of hype culture or fans, I mean, I guess it's easier when you're younger and you're newer to all this to get caught up in all of this in the hype of a certain game's release and announcement. It's still easy to get excited at trailers or reveal trailers or even re-reveal trailers, like when Versus 13 became 15 in that trailer. I think there was more people championing that it was still alive after all those rumors that it had been scrapped.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. Like the expectations for this game, like everyone keeps saying, like there's no way this game can live up to expectations because it's just been in development for too long. At the same time, I'm just as worried there aren't enough people who care anymore. Like the environment's changed. I think people just got so burned out waiting that you're just like, whatever, it's coming out, cool, I'll play it. It's probably going to be okay. It's not going to be great. And I think part of that does stem from what you were talking about earlier, Tony, about the culture of apology at Square Enix, that basically they had to go into a very defensive, posture following the shortcomings of Final Fantasy 13, and it had just been like this struggle against it, with a few bright spots such as A Realm Reborn, as we've talked about, obviously, and other smaller titles coming out that have found success in one way or another. But it still seems like Square Enix has this looming cloud above them about whether or not they can hack it anymore as a AAA developer. I mean, and I'm talking budget-wise. Let's throw quality out the window for a second. Can they keep existing as they are, putting so much money and time into these games? Not just the Japanese side. I'm talking about the Eidos side as well, the Western side. When these games aren't selling to their expectations, and they are, some of them are selling at what a lower tier production quality game would be, budget wise, than these AAA games. And I guess, like, I know this isn't necessarily addressing hype culture, but this whole ordeal has just basically made me worry that if 15 doesn't, reception wise, doesn't wow fans, or comes off as abysmal or very disappointing, is this going to signal some kind of like shift at Square Enix, where we keep talking? We mentioned like they need to go guns blazing 16. Will there even be a Final Fantasy 16 in the form we think? Will they double down on what they think is successful now, which is their smaller budget games, their mobile games, and their MMO, or plural O's, because they have Dragon Quest as well. I have a feeling that at some point, come Stormblood, since they're upping the budget for the game, that someone at Square Enix executive level thinks that 14's worth it. That, oh, wait a second, this game is still doing well. Oh, wait, didn't we have a lot of trouble with this game, development costs and stuff, and had to overhaul it? Is it actually getting close to being profitable and making money for Square Enix? I actually don't know that. I have to assume it's getting close to that point with how long this thing's going to be running. Does Square Enix to start like putting more money into like 14 and other games like that? I don't know. Like I'm more worried about how 15 is going to be received. And I know I like to laugh at it and make fun of it, but there is part of me that is genuinely worried that a bad showing from 15 will mean less chance of another proper Final Fantasy in the future, or at least a quality one. Who knows? Like, it's just a little concerning. I don't know. Mm-hmm. And maybe it would have been better to have cut their losses when they scrapped what was Versus and turned it into 15 and went down a different course with that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things that's 15 looms large over what could possibly be the future of the series. Do I think they're not going to make Final Fantasy 16? I really doubt that. I feel like there's so much willpower at Square Enix Japan. I guess it depends on like what the highest of the higher ups feel. I mean, like I feel like if they were to say no, we're never gonna do Final Fantasy 16, it's over. We're just gonna do like these sort of like World of Final Fantasy style like spin-offs and maybe just you know to not really push Final Fantasy anymore. I feel like you would see an exodus of pretty much all of the talent at Square. They'd lose Nomura, they'd lose a lot of people, and I think maybe 14 would continue on, but I don't know. I mean, like it's really hard to say what the future of Final Fantasy is going to look like. I do believe that there'll be a Final Fantasy 16. I think the last franchise that Square would give up on is Final Fantasy. And even if let's say like the apocalypse happened, right? And there was one game that they had to put out. I still think that they would with whatever staff or whatever people that they have, if they had to choose one, I think they would still choose Final Fantasy. So Mike, I want to ask, what do you think that if Final Fantasy 15 is successful, that Square could possibly learn the wrong lesson from it? And the same goes as if it fails, do you think that they could also take the wrong lesson from it as well? Or what do you think is the right lesson that they could take?
I was actually playing around with that idea in my head as I was listening to everyone talk. Is like, what happens if 15 is a flop? Like, would they try to go like real old school style again with it, kind of like an I Am Setsuna type deal, only with Final Fantasy, like go back to the roots? Since clearly this like,
So
it's
would
gonna
you
sound like
mean
I'm shitting on 15 right now, but like, since their new their restaurant didn't work and their freaking all of this marketing stuff didn't work because the game was a flop and not a success or whatever. I wonder if that would mean they would go back to like a more traditional style of Final Fantasy, or even if what does it mean for JRPGs? Because maybe the world has shifted away from it a little bit, but I still feel a lot of people feel that Final Fantasy is kind of like a backbone of the JRPG genre, whatever is left of it, these days. Is it what would be the lesson you think they might take away from 15 being a flop? Where did they go wrong? Was it just it's just a 10-year cycle? It was just a mess. We'll just make a more focused attempt on 16, or if this I pray that if this is a success, they don't decide to just go oversaturated marketing, crazy promotional nonsense they've done with 15. It's been a little over much. Kind of sick of 15. It hasn't even come out yet. I hope they just, if they learn anything, it's just like, we don't need the active time reports for 16. Please don't do that.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know what I would even want from a 16. What I want them to keep going in the direction. Do I want like a return to form of like the golden era, I say in air quotes, of 7, 8, and 9, the PS1 era, which a lot of people say is like, real heyday of Final Fantasy, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10.
Well, we're gonna get an experiment with that coming up somewhat soon, don't you think? I mean,
are you
Final
talking
Fantasy
about
VII
the
remake.
remake?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So like,
Yeah,
I feel like this is kind of like, I feel like 7 remake is the experiment, seeing if they can recreate the heyday. And to
recapture
me, I
that
feel
magic, perhaps.
to me, I feel like if it's, and I know we're talking we're talking very negatively right now, but um, let's just say, for example, 15 not so hot, doesn't do so well, but then remake part 1 that sells gangbusters and people love it and so on. What message does that send to Square Enix though? Is it saying
It
like
tells them they can keep cashing on their old properties and not making the new ones.
right? And then what would that mean
Very
for the
possible.
series though? I mean, it would mean like, yes, we'd be able to like relive like these old games in like a new kind of in a new way and got like a lot of the same staff and so on, and like but then like we don't have a new Final Fantasy that that can become someone's favorite. We just have
Mhm.
something that's kind of like a nostalgia. We have something that's basically a remake of something that came before it, and I don't. For me, like Final Fantasy VII, like the original Final Fantasy VII, has cemented itself so firmly in my brain that I feel like this remake is not going to erase it or like suddenly make it disappear. I feel though that like in popular culture, if remake goes really well, then it might become like the dominant thing people think about when Seven comes up.
Well,
And
think about it this way. Like, hasn't Square been cashing in on? No, okay, cashing in has a negative connotation to it. But haven't they been leaning kind of heavily on the pantheon of Final Fantasy lately? You have World of Final Fantasy. Not saying anything against it, but you also have Record Keeper that's come out. You also have all these kind of games that are harkening back to older Final Fantasies. It's almost like they don't want new new things, or like I don't know. They've been doing the remake thing for a long time. I think everyone's very aware of that. You open up Steam, 7, 8, 9, all right there, 10, 10.2, and that's all been in the process of 15's development cycle. So I think we might need to wait and see a couple of years down the line, once this beast of Final Fantasy 15 is just shove it out there, just fucking finish the DLC you're gonna do to it, just let it kind of sit there, for a while, and then they're gonna have to definitely reevaluate like what their next course is gonna be, and hopefully it's to develop new things. But the last couple of Final Fantasies have been like, even Dissidia, which is like a big thing going on right now. Like they're announcing all the characters and stuff like that. That's all pulling from past Final Fantasies. That's not really telling anything new. It's not creating any new characters. Not really. I wouldn't consider like Chaos and Cosmos, or I forget who the new ones are in the arcade version, but those aren't new characters. It's not telling new stories. They're rehashing old stories again. So I don't know. I think they definitely need to. I don't know.
I feel
I
like
think we just need to see. I
we
think we need to see.
I feel like we need a 16 no matter what.
Oh yeah, absolutely. 15 cannot be the end of this series. It's like it's never going to happen. Like, let's be real. Kingdom Hearts 3 is not going to be the end of that series either. I think
Yeah,
everyone
I'm
knows
sure
that.
that'll. I
So
wouldn't be surprised if that outsells 15. I wouldn't be surprised if I could see it rub elbows with 7 remake, pretty easily. I think that fan base has been so thirsty for that third game, for some closure, and
absolutely.
I'm kind of hoping Nomura can
I hope
deliver
it's
it,
good.
because
I think Nomura can. I
do
believe it.
you think that he can close that game, or do you provide some sense of closure with 3, or do you think?
I think he's done a good job having closure with Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. I mean, like, both of those games, like, they never continued it, I've been okay with it. Okay enough. I don't know. It's kind of hard. There's a lot of threads going on for Nomura to close, but I think he can handle it. It depends on how he decides he wants the story to go, but I don't know. And then
But okay, let's
yeah,
flip the coin a little bit, because I know we've been sounding like super negative, but let's say Final Fantasy 15 is a resounding success and people are really happy with it. What do you think is a good lesson that you've seen Square handle with Final Fantasy 15 that they could take and learn going forward? And this is like development wise, marketing wise, and so on. What do you think would be the best lesson that they could take from how they've handled 15 going forward? And then what do you think something they should scrap? Like,
that's a good point. Like, actually, what I liked about the development of 15 so far, especially recently, has been that they hadn't, maybe to their detriment. I can feel Erren already beginning to cringe as I say this, but like they haven't been beholden to anything. They've kind of been not opposed to kind of changing things that they had set in stone, things that maybe didn't work, and pushing them try to find something that does work. Like that's kind of good. Listening to fan feedback, as ridiculous as that might have been, you guys singing the praises of the Judgment disc so far. So clearly, whatever second opinions, third opinions, fifth opinions they've had have shaped the game in a positive direction. So that's good. Like evolving the genre is important. To not be okay with mediocre. I don't know. What is some other people think about that? Like, what if 15 is a success? Like, what what lessons should they carry through to the event 15 in terms of at least development?
Well, I think in terms of development, they actually did streamline a lot of their internal development pipelines. So that's probably actually one of the biggest positives to come from the whole situation, regardless if the game turns out, super amazing or if it's just good or, whatever. But because before, Japan or Japanese development companies had a really hard time sort of adapting to the high definition era with the PS3, and even going into the PS4 era, then there's still a little bit of that lingering. So they basically, when the game changed hands, when 15 changed hands, they overhauled their entire team structure, and now they're sort of operating more like how Western studios do their work. So it's a good thing because they're sort of understanding how modern development flow works now, and hopefully they will use the sort of first outing, if you will, going forward into 16 and whatever else they decide to do in the AAA space.
So, Michael, do you have any lingering thoughts about what do you think that they've done right so far, handling 15 and all of the tribulations that it's gone through since its original announcement?
I mean, I don't think they did anything right until until the re-reveal trailer at E3.
Mm-hmm.
I think what Square Enix has done on a positive note is that they put together a team of people that were going to get the game out the door instead of letting this drag on forever. Like someone finally at Square Enix put their foot down and said, "All right, Nomura, you might be an amazing creator, you might have a great imagination, but you're costing this company too much money. You're just taking too damn long with whatever you're doing with Versus 13. We need to release an actual game." And I think sadly that's kind of like the balance. The age where a small team or led by a single-minded individual for a video game, it's very hard for that to exist anymore. You've seen how it has pretty much there's no one left that works that way. Hideo Kojima was forced out at Konami. He was the last great one. Ueda, you can read between the lines of what happened between Ueda and with The Last Guardian and Sony and all that. But it was pretty clear that they wanted a game out. He wanted his vision, and he was also known for taking an extremely long time on games as well. And Last Guardian took forever to come out, and coming out right on the heels of this game. It's just happened time and time again. I think Nomura was the last one standing with Kojima, and Nomura's still there, and I think they're giving him another chance with 7 Remake and Kingdom Hearts, but they have put a bit of a more of a balance with their team structure, I think, there, in that there are better managers now in place to supervise the talent so that the games come out in a timely fashion, so that they can't take 5+ years or more. In this case, you just can't do that anymore. It sucks, but unless you want to go out and get independently funded, and good luck getting even a Kickstarter to fund you the money you need for a title like a new Final Fantasy game, you kind of have to work within the system. That's just how it is. So I guess the positive is that Square Enix sort of getting some of their business act together when it comes to game development and their managers. You saw it with it trickled down into 14. Like they were like, okay, we can't give up on this game. Let's get a team in there who can get this going. Let's get this fixed. And same thing with 15. They're like, all right, Tabata's proven himself. Yeah, he may have been specializing in the portable games, but he's shown a head for business as well as in development, as well as content creation. So get him in there and get this game out the door. So and maybe it makes Tabata a better resource and employee there for the next project that they hand over to him, having to deal with this kind of crisis situation of, hey, you get 3 years to finish Final Fantasy 15. Good luck. Here's what was done with Versus. Convert it into a playable game in 3 years. Good luck.
Yeah, it's definitely a monumental task that they heaped on his shoulders, and I think whatever comes of Final Fantasy 15's reception, I think that there's no doubt that the dude is taking on a huge project with monumental expectations on his shoulders. That being said, I think that there are probably some things that I wouldn't, or I'm kind of questioning, but at the same time, it's I don't know how they all play out yet. It all depends, believe it or not, on the final product. A few things though, I still look back to some of the decisions with the constant ATRs and some of the decisions with the marketing and the product tie-ins, the advertisements. That's still, I really wish that was a path that they had not gone down. I felt like they were way more creative than doing something like that. I guess it remains to be seen. I can put that aside if I really love the game. That's fine. But I can actually put that stuff aside. But at the same time, it's something that it's not a line that I wish Final Fantasy would have crossed. So I felt like if you are gonna have stuff like that in your game, that it could have been done way more tastefully. And I felt like this was kind of just a last ditch, we've got money to spend in the marketing budget, let's throw stuff at a wall and see what sticks.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of fine people that work at Square Enix marketing, but I had this impression with 13 too. I didn't understand what the goal was really and what kind of audience they were going for. And then the Conan thing is another example. There have been PR people that have kind of weighed in here and there from other parts of the web and, saying oh, if I were Square, I would have never have done this. This is Conan's audience is so not Final Fantasy's audience. And while I kind of, I don't know. I couldn't say for sure. I wouldn't know myself for sure. Part of me feels like that wasn't kind of the right fit for Final Fantasy, but at the same time, it's I understand that they're trying really hard to be able to push this to a bigger audience, and me personally, I would be at a loss as to how to kind of do that. I mean, Final Fantasy VII, that was largely, Erren, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, largely on Sony's dime, the marketing. Wasn't that...
Yeah, if I remember right, they had $100 million marketing campaign for that game, so it was pretty massive.
Especially back then, that was 97.
In 97,
100
that
million
was pretty big.
Whatever. That's crazy.
And I think 15 has kind of been overshadowed by itself with all these different universe offshoots that they've kind of cobbled together for it. And I think we mentioned this earlier, but people have sort of become kind of disenchanted from it because of it. It's well, why, what was it, last week or a couple weeks ago they revealed they're developing some mobile MMO based on the game, and it's really? I mean,
the game's not even out.
yeah, and that's on top of the couple mobile games that they've already made for it. So there is that sort of, I guess, burnout factor to consider.
Yeah, I mean it's a lot of information to take in, and like there's kind of a spectacle to it all, like to see how much they're actually doing for this game, all of the stuff surrounding the game. Like it's cool, but it's also at the same time it's also like what if we don't like it, you know? What if it's not good? Like, and I have no interest to invest in, a limited collector's edition steelbook of Kingsglaive or, you
Hmm.
know, I mean, I don't know. I felt like it feels like maybe this stuff would have better been suited to coming out after release. I don't know. I mean, I can't pretend for the life of me to know like what marketing genius, you know, would have done. Like I have no idea. But at the same time it's like all I can do is kind of relay what I'm feeling and my own personal my own personal impressions of what they're trying to do with it. And to me so far, it's been very scattered and it feels very, I don't want to say experimental. It feels like, well, we have the money to do this kind of a thing, let's do it. And a thing of like the Audi, the car, like it's cool, but it's like who is this trying to impress? Like I don't.
Well, hey, if you have, $500,000, you can, put in your name for a chance to buy it.
Mm, well, I'll help you right on that. Everyone, pull your money up.
Well, I think we mentioned this before. Do you think that this could be like I'm just thinking about what you were saying about the marketing and stuff like that, and do you think this could like lead into more westernization of Final Fantasy going forward? Like for 16, do you think there'll be like a really Western market push? Like I'm kind of curious. Like it seems like that's what they're trying to do with like the Conan thing,
Right,
with the
because we've
restaurant thing. Like this is all in the West. We've never seen this kind of
because
this crazy
I
push.
mean, we've seen like this kind of stuff with The Witcher, with Skyrim. Like they've all been on Conan, they've all done this, and it feels like Square Enix, they're trying to put Final Fantasy into that same sort of RPG, the same sort of kind of. They want people to think about Final Fantasy 15 in the same way that people think about Skyrim, and the way that they think about like Mass Effect or Dragon Age or um, Witcher. And I feel like Final Fantasy is a series that can get there, and maybe it all depends on the strength of the WRPGs, the Western style RPGs. Like if if we, if that genre continues to be extremely strong, then I think that Square Enix has all the more incentive to try to appeal to that massively. I mean that the base of the people that play Western style RPGs has grown so much in the last 10 years.
Hmm.
Um,
It's
I
almost like a mainstream genre along with first-person shooters. It might be, making the push.
right, exactly, and I mean like it would almost be silly for them to not try to court that crowd. But at the same time, it feels like, and Erren probably has a lot of comments about this too. It does feel like they are trying a little bit too hard, and I feel like that's starting to reflect itself in a lot of the design decisions that I've seen in Final Fantasy 15 a bit that they've changed. It feels like maybe they've changed a little bit too much to lean in that direction a little too hard. I don't know. Like it all depends on how people and how fans and how like the gaming community and the public at large ultimately views Final Fantasy 15. Like I don't know. I mean, I still feel like there's so much we that Final Fantasy 15 will represent, but we just aren't at a point yet where we can definitively say, like you were saying earlier, Mike. I feel like it's going to be a couple months, if not maybe even a couple years, before we fully understand what 15 really means to what Square's trying to do and go for, where they want Final Fantasy to not only be like as a game, but how they want it to be received by how they want it to occupy the space in the gaming universe, because it feels like they're still trying to, despite all of the turmoil that 13 and 14 1.0 had. Like, I feel like they still, no matter what, they want to present Final Fantasy as just like the top tier quintessential video game that you can get, and I feel that the gaming community and maybe the public at large doesn't see Final Fantasy in that sort of space anymore. But Square is like, no, 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 no. We definitely feel that we are creating something that occupies this space. And I
I
feel
wonder
like
if it's like a self perception too, because like when Final Fantasy comes out, when 13 came out, it was a big story all over the place. All the gaming websites are blowing up about it. Everyone's commenting on it. So like Final Fantasy is it's still a big thing to gamers, but I wonder if Square still thinks of it as a big deal to gamers. I mean, they're trying to like jazz it up for the younger crowd. I don't know.
there's a billboard in Japan right now that all it says is Final Fantasy is coming out. And that to me speaks volumes about how Square Enix internally views Final Fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
I just hope that, I mean, but that's the thing though, it's just like, is that realistic anymore? Is that how the gaming community and is that how the larger public still do they still hold Final Fantasy in that regard?
I think so. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Final Fantasy 15, it's going to be a big test, I think, and not only just whether it's a good or a mediocre or a bad game, it's going to be kind of a referendum on, I think, how people still view Final Fantasy and how what kind of space it occupies for them
In the
in
gaming
gaming.
community.
Yeah.
That's true. It's kind of interesting how much is riding, or possibly, potentially riding on the game, and we're so close to finding out the answers.
So this is kind of basically our big pre Final Fantasy 15 release show. I want to invite you guys to, if you guys have any closing thoughts on what you guys are expecting from 15, let them loose now, because our next show, we're going full on into our impressions, and we'll probably have a review up by then too. Yeah, any last words before we move into a post Final Fantasy 15 release era? Maybe
Well,
Erren?
I'm glad it's finally going to be out, and hopefully new things. Hopefully it means we can see new things. That's basically, the one thing that I've been looking forward to the most, actually, is we can finally hopefully see some new Final Fantasy ideas that we really haven't gotten since 10 years ago.
Mike, what are you thinking?
We lost Damiani.
Did we?
Went offline.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, he disconnected.
So Mike, what are you thinking? Like,
I kind of echo the sentiments of Aaron. It's just like I'm looking forward to what's next. Not like I'm not gonna look past 15. Like I'm down. I'm all. I can't wait for my copy to get here for me to sit down and actually play it. But I'm looking forward to seeing what's next, and where the brand evolves from here. I think that's what I'm most looking forward to. Is kind of seeing what's next. Like not looking past what we have, but like where's remake Final Fantasy 7? That's all I want. It's just the next step to getting there.
We'll have plenty of time next year to talk about everything.
I'm so excited.
Final Fantasy 7 remake. But yeah, Final Fantasy 15 for me, I'm optimistic about the game's quality, and I feel like my expectations are in a good place. We've had a lot of people comment on the show in the past, kind of questioning, why aren't you guys just as hyped as we are? And part of it has to do, I think, and I guess I'll put it simply, we're kind of part of the older generation of Final Fantasy now. You know what I mean? Like we've been around since the 6, 7, 8 days. Like, my first Final Fantasy was 6. Erren's was first you really got into was 7, I believe, and then Mike,
Likewise, yeah.
you know, I mean, we're kind of that era, and we've, I mean, we've gone through so many Final Fantasy games that have taken so long in development and have either been either well received or poorly received. I feel like there's kind of a certain calmness that comes to it. Like, although we have a lot of worries about maybe Final Fantasy 15, I feel like there's we've had that button pushed so many times that I feel like, you know, we can kind of have some distance from it. Where I see like a lot of our, even at Nova Crystallis, like even some of our younger staff that we've had, like Maku and Wazi, I want to shout out to those guys. Like they're a bit, you know, of the younger crowd. And in the past, they're really extremely hyped about Final Fantasy 15, and you know they come from it from kind of like a newer perspective, and it's to me it's interesting to watch them talk about Final Fantasy 15, for example, and you know what they're expecting out of it, and it's kind of interesting to see them express like the optimism and the excitement that we all share, but in expressing it in kind of a different way. Like if that, I'll be honest, like that was me 10 years ago. You know what I mean? Like people their age now, I feel like I would have been kind of like in the same, expressing my excitement in kind of like the same, really kind of like almost because you know like a lot of the younger crowd that's kind of really into Final Fantasy 15 right now, like it's just been a couple years for them. Like it hasn't been 10 years, and maybe if it's been 10 years, you know, they were probably quite young. But now for us, it's kind of like, you know, it's finally another chapter in Final Fantasy that's kind of coming to a close. And it's just, to me, I've kind of evolved from like moving up and down with hype culture to more of like an observational interest. Like I'm
Yeah.
still extremely interested and really hyped, but in a certain different kind of way now. Like I was saying before and earlier in the show, I'm interested in observation of what people think of it and what it means for Square and what it means for what kind of Final Fantasy are we going to see in the future, and Final Fantasy 15's impact on the fandom, gaming in general, and what we can expect from like the genre. And I feel like it still is very much a genre-leading game.
Absolutely.
No doubt about it. Um, so yeah, it's gonna be an interesting couple weeks, folks. It's already starting to show up that way. So please join us for the final days before Final Fantasy 15 releases. We're gonna keep you up to date on all the latest news, and post launch too. We're gonna have DLC coming out over the following months, and we're gonna have all the details on that as well. Um, I want to thank all you guys for listening to us talk about Final Fantasy 15, and I'm really happy that we were able to share a lot in this show with you guys. I know that we've kind of had positive opinions and negative opinions, and we always want to invite you guys to share your thoughts in a comment or on the site too, novacrystallis.com. Please always feel free to share your opinions. It's me and Erren especially really enjoy understanding where you guys come from and like what gets you motivated to get excited about Final Fantasy.
Yeah, it's
Um,
like it's good to create a dialogue, you know. Like it shouldn't just be us like lecturing like what Final Fantasy should be. It's like, you know, get involved in the discussion and
right.
it's all fun.
So we talk very passionately about what we see in Final Fantasy 15, and what would mean the most to us is that if you guys just engage as honestly as you can. I mean, we come at all this from a very honest place. I feel like, um, so I feel that we want to invite you guys to share the same. And we know you guys have commented on the show in the past and on 15 articles on the site too. And so I just want to thank every one of you guys for following us through this incredibly long saga and I'm really excited to see where it all goes, and I'm really looking forward to it. And I guess I want to let Erren have the last word here because not only is she the owner of Nova Crystallis, but she's probably been just like, I could think of one person that's kind of been kind of at the forefront of setting expectations in for Final Fantasy 15. I think we've all kind of looked to you to see where where what kind of questions maybe what should we be asking of how this development process has gone along, and what do you think this means for the series? And I think we've all kind of looked to you, and so I just want to say thanks, Erren, for one, not only keeping us informed, but asking a lot of really interesting questions and framing a lot of things in a perhaps a non-typical light. So I guess I want to ask, is there anything...
It's funny that you say that because, you know Shinogu.
Yeah.
He actually came to me the other day and he's like, hey, you know, I'm putting together this sort of like retrospective of Final Fantasy 15, dating all the way back to the Versus days, and he's like, you know, I really want to thank you for having all these old articles on your site. And I was like, oh man, like it's just hard to believe that we've kept these on here for so many years. The site, of course, started back in 2009, so you know that was like right at the height of Final Fantasy 13's release. And you know, at the time there was still not a lot of Versus stuff, but you know, since then, you know, we've pretty much collected everything. So for somebody to be able to use that as a resource, I think just really speaks volumes of what the site's sort of become over the years.
Yeah, and yeah, every day it's like I'm really proud to be able to work with a team that's so passionate about like bringing the news to you guys, and I'm doing my best to work hard on like the video stuff and working on, you know, trying to figure out, you know, what we can push as far as, you know, new types of content. So I'm really excited to figure out what we're gonna do in the future. Final Fantasy 15 is gonna be a very interesting time.
Yeah, and you know, continuing on what I was talking about, it was really kind of eye-opening this past E3, and even at Final Fantasy 14 FanFest, people who'd be like, oh yeah, you know, I know the site, I go there all the time, and it's just kind of amazing to see that it's sort of become this like big source for people to go, especially for 15. 15 is usually like, well, right now anyway, it's one of our most trafficked subjects. So hopefully, you know, we can continue to make more 15 content going forward.
So yeah, that'll about do it for everything that we've got today. I'm sorry that Damiani left a little bit early. He had some internet troubles, but you can check out Easy Allies because I'm sure he'll be doing a lot of stuff with Final Fantasy 15 in the coming days. So thank you again, guys, for supporting us, Nova Crystallis, through this long era of Final Fantasy 15 finally coming to fruition. Please share with us all of your thoughts before, during, and after it comes out, and we'll be happy to engage with you guys as a community, and we'll be happy to engage with you going forward. So thanks again for watching. Our next show is going to dive head on right into Final Fantasy 15 impressions. So look forward to it.